We are live. What is up, swimmers and swammers? And welcome back to the SwimSwam Breakdown. It has been a minute. It feels good to be back talking swimming, talking news. I've been doing so many podcasts lately that I'm glad to be just talking to my peers as opposed to ridiculously fast swimmers all the time. Um, Thank you for tuning in. Once again, I'm Coleman Hodges coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. I am joined by David Clossie, aka the Swim Scribe from St. Cloud, Minnesota. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel at the Swim Scribe to stay up to date with all of your swimming stories. David, how's it going?
I'm doing wonderful. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the SwimSwam Breakdown is now back because you've interviewed all of the Olympians. I think that's what it feels like. I think you got every single one. Um,
Every single
yeah.
swimmer at the Olympics.
No, I think you're gonna branch out, do some skateboarding Olympians. I think Ray Gunn is on the next episode as well.
Yeah.
So make sure you follow for that one. No, I
Yeah.
mean it's been I've been loving all the interview content. There's been a lot of why I love that you got the Muffin Man on.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I appreciate the love, David. Thank you. But yeah, it's been a lot of work. I thought like the Olympics were gonna end, and then I'd be like, okay, now I get to relax for a while, and like then I just got busier, ironically. So now it's kind of the time when I'm gonna take a break for a little bit, but now things are starting to ramp back up in swimming, international and college. So we've got a lot to talk about, and I'm kind of excited to just nerd out about fall swimming for a while instead of long course Olympic swimming, which can get a little boring, I think. All right. So first on our docket, I'm going to switch things up from the email I sent to you, David. But we're going to start with international swimming because the Shanghai World Cup is coming up, and I feel like it had a real zero to hero narrative within the last couple months, which I think is just awesome. A couple months ago, I didn't think hardly anyone was going to attend this World Cup. Uh, I it people it didn't seem like people really wanted to travel, make the long travel to China, especially coming off the back of an Olympic Games. Everyone's kind of like, I just want to chill out, take a break, ease back into swimming. After a shortened and kind of hectic quad. But then all of a sudden, Kayla McEwen gets bored, breaks a world record at an Australian meet. Boom, she's going to the World Cup. Kate Douglas and Reagan Smith are like, you know what? We want to do some short course swimming, earn some money as pros. Boom, they're going to the World Cup. I'm just going to read off a list of potential attendees, and it's kind of a long list, which you as swim fans should be excited for. From the American contingent, Michael Andrew, Kate Douglas, Beta Nelson, who was the World Cup champion a couple years ago, Reagan Smith, Kieran Smith. From the Australians, we got Isaac Cooper, Matt Temple, and of course, Kayla McEwen, Leon Marchand, James Guy, Ben Proud, Duncan Scott, Pan Jan Le, Chin Hai Yang, Li Bingji, Tang Qinting, Zhang Yufei, Zhang Yufei, Siobhan Howie, Thomas Chacon, Chad Leclos, Matt Sates, the Hansen sisters from Sweden. I mean, it is star-studded, and you can tell that because the meet sold out in minutes, and now resale markets show a 20x or more markup on the tickets. Original ticket prices ranged from about $8 American to nearly up to 100, and now on StubHub they are listed at from $267 to $375. That's American. This is just for a 2 or 3 day meet in China. I mean, this is it's like it's a little surprising. So anyway, that was my long rant about the Shanghai World Cup. David, what are you most excited for now about
Ooh.
this meet that seems like it's going to be a real banger?
I'm really excited. I mean, we've known for a decent bit of time, kind of before this like deluge of extra stars being like, "Oh, I'm swimming World Cups."
Yeah.
Like God, that just kept going and going and going when you're listing them all off there. Marchand is kind of, I feel like everyone's kind of like, we've seen him in short course yards. I don't think the extra little bit of distance you're adding going over to short course meters is going to make that much of a difference. And so that's something I've always been kind of excited for, just since that's been announced. But another one that I'm very excited for, and I think is a massive part of why the tickets for this meet in China sold out so quickly, is Pan. Because it's just that natural progression, right? Anytime you see a swimmer do something crazy in one course, you want to know what they're going to do in the other course. And normally, at least for Americans, right? It's normally, oh, we see them go crazy in short course yards. Their underwaters aren't the best. Maybe they'll go crazy in long course meters. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. Now we're seeing it in reverse, and there's been other swimmers who've done the same thing, but seeing such a monumental swim, I'd say the best single performance of the Paris Olympics in that 100 freestyle going, all right, how are his walls? How are his underwater? Can he keep that going and, with turnaround so much? And, with such a performance like that, you're immediately going to become a hometown hero. And I think there's so many people who are like, well, we just saw this guy light it up at the Olympics. I got to see him in person. I get to see this kid go crazy now. And so I think that's going to be really exciting. And I think that is a massive reason as to why the tickets for this venue in particular were gone instantaneously. And then there's also mainstay Chinese stars like Zhang Yufei and Qin Haiyang are also both seem to be incredibly popular and are very successful athletes. And so that comboed with, the swimmers who are always I always get excited for the swimmers that can just go fast whenever, Michael Andrew. We're going to be seeing him, how he's looking with his new mystery coach. And Regan Smith has also been Regan Smith and Kaylee McEwen, which is so funny that those two are very similar swimmers in that way, are both just like, one just went a world record, and Regan Smith, that pro swim series has always been kind of either barely going ahead of a time that McEwen went like 12 hours earlier during the long course season, or is like a couple hundreds behind. Like those two are always kind of just going like back and forth. And we normally see that kind of cross-continental sniping, but a little bit less of it in season at the same meet. So that could be super exciting.
And now it's not even cross-continental. Now
Exactly.
It's just head-to-head. Someone's going to win. And I think the most exciting part for me about all these swimmers is that we know that all of them can throw down in season. Maybe not so much, Pan Zhenle or some of the other Chinese swimmers. They've certainly swam fast in season. We're just not as used to it or haven't seen it quite as much. But I know for swimmer athletes who have swam in the NCAA, a la Leon Marchand, a la Regan Smith, or, like, as you said, just a lot of athletes who we've seen swim a lot over the last 5 years, throw down incredible times in season. Like, they're all going there. It's like, oh yeah, like
it's probably part of the reason why they went.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, there's over $1 million in prize money over this World Cup series, which, again, it's only 3 meets. It's all in Asia. It's Shanghai, Incheon, Singapore. I don't think it's Singapore's the third stop, but it's 3 stops. It's all in Asia. And I think, again, for Western swimmers, that was a little bit of a long travel for some, but for others, it's like, well, I'm not doing anything else. I can go earn some money. I will say, for you swim nerds out there who are listening, we have been in contact with Pan Zhenle. He hasn't said no to doing an interview, but he did say, listen, I'm swimming in Shanghai. I'm focusing on that right now. After that, we can circle back. So he hasn't said no, and I'm very excited to see what he does at this meet, because it is a home meet. As we know, tickets sold out instantly, probably mostly because he's swimming at this meet. And so I'm really excited to see what he can do short course meters. Commenters were saying, like, so how does his 46.4, I have to be like, what did he go again? It's like unreal in my head.
It sounds wrong.
It sounds wrong. Compared to Chalmers' 44.8 world record that he did at a World Cup within the last few years.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you think about this comparison, and what Pan might be able to throw down in 100 free? Because I think 44.8, like 46.4 is way closer to 44.8 than a lot of other world records, long course to short course. But I think 44.8 is probably deceivingly hard to hit, because again, your turns, your underwaters definitely need to be a little sharper.
Yeah, that's something that's part of the reason why I'm so excited for it, is just to see, because I don't really know what kind of swimmer he is in regards to short course versus long. Because we know in a lot of other swimmers who are, they're way better at short course, they're way better at long course, they're about the same,
And he's gone 46 more than any other swimmer. He's gone 47 low. Like, we know he can do it long course.
Yeah, and he's competed at some short course worlds in previous cycles. That was actually, I believe, his one sec. I just recently went through. I still have him in my notebook here. His results.
Pull out the notes.
I use this notebook. These are all my notes here from previous videos because it helps me get my thoughts together.
You could probably sell that on eBay for quite a bit at some point. Some swim nerd out there is like, I need the SwimScribe.
But how will I refer back to it? Yeah, like, so 2021 Short Course Worlds was actually his first like major international meet, because he wasn't in Tokyo. And I'm trying to see if he ever, I know he's final in some Short Course Worlds. I'm curious if he's medaled on a relay or individually, because I know it took him a weirdly long time for how impactful he was in Paris to actually win international medal. He got a lot of fourth place finishes individually and on relays.
Yeah.
So it looks like
right.
Do I have? Yeah, he was.
I remember
45.7 at 2022 Short Course Worlds, and he finaled in that one. So he upgraded from missing the final, and he was in the semifinals in 2021.
47.0 in 2021. This is at Short Course Worlds. And then, like you said, 45.7. Dang. So, I mean, he had a huge improvement curve, but also we forget he's the same age as David Popovich. He's like 19 or 20 right now.
Yeah, I believe he turned 20 during on the day of the medley relay.
That's right. Yeah, because he made a post on his birthday on Instagram. Yeah, so he's 20. He's still quite young. And 3 years ago when he didn't make Tokyo, he was 17 or 16 maybe.
Yeah, I think he would have been 16 and about to turn 17.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just it's nuts. It's nuts. It's crazy.
It's crazy how similar those two swimmers are too, Popovich and Pan.
Seriously, I mean, they're both exceptional, not only at the 100 but at the 200 as well. It's just kind of where they choose to focus. So that is going to be really exciting. The World Cup, just period, now has really gained some traction in life. I want to make one other point, and I think this will be a great segue into American swimming. It's so cool to see that these Chinese stars who are coming off of the Olympics have this home meet that is a big international meet that Chinese fans can get really excited for. It can sell out in minutes because all these Chinese swimming fans are like, I want to go see these Olympic athletes compete that I just saw on TV. Why doesn't America have that? Why doesn't, and college swimming absolutely does not count, right? We should be having a 3-meet short course meters swim series in the fall, coming off of an Olympic Games, West Coast, Midwest, East Coast, where you're showcasing these Olympic athletes and they're competing. And I know that a lot of swimmers probably don't want to do that, but fans would go see it. Fans could go see it. They would go see it. And B, if the money's right, and if you can get other international swimmers from all over the world vacation here anyway. Like they go to the US on their breaks. So it's like if you pay them, they'll probably put on a racing suit and throw down some fun races. Like that would be so cool because obviously we've seen it works. Like Shanghai is the model of if you showcase your stars, people want to go see them.
Yeah, it's actually something I was thinking about looking at the initial kind of like the success with the tickets and stuff like that was how can like what are some takeaways to being able to replicate this either at other World Cup stops or like an American series like that. And I think the biggest issue that we've had, and like, you know, the easiest example is the existing Pro Sim series model.
Yeah.
The you know, like compared to just domestic competition, obviously it's not quite the timing of, you know, like you mentioned right after the Olympics, which would make the most sense to hit it. Even like USA Gymnastics is doing like a tour right now that's like doing pretty well. Like,
yeah,
can't do it. Why can't we do something like that? And like gymnasts, it's actually very common for them to take very extended breaks during cycles, like not compete for the next like year and a half. Like I was learning that, I'm like, that's crazy to me. I'm used to swimmers taking like a couple months and they're like, got to get ready for Worlds.
Kayla McEwen tried to take 3 weeks off and she's like, can't do it.
Oh, that's funny. But I feel like the biggest issue that you kind of touched on is getting athletes to show up because the timing can be, and also the exact thing you mentioned is if the money's right, and that's, you know, what was it? You said $1 million total in prize money for the World Cup. That'll do it pretty decently. And I've also thought, like, I wonder if there'd be any kind of, again, I was kind of thinking about this a few months back. I don't know what story kind of got me just randomly thinking about this one day. Again, about Pro Sim series, like how can you, because one of the most annoying things that can happen is on the last day of a Pro Sim series when all your stars are like, I got to catch a flight. I'm maybe ripping a prelim swim and I'm leaving. And it's just kind of that last day, just like all the wind is gone. So, like, you know, but if you have more prize money, you can't win prize money from a prelim swim. Or if maybe for like kind of, it probably wouldn't work for like stars of any kind of like, you know, people who are making a lot of money from their like prize money at major international meets or their like, you know, endorsements and stuff like that. But maybe other like USA swimmers, I thought like, what if there was, you know, because I know USA Swimming has like the, you know, like training stipend and stuff like that for a national team. If you could have like another subset of that, that's like, hey, we'll give you more money if you are basically inking a contract to swim this many out of these meets, right? Like you are required to, and maybe even bake in performance incentives or something like that too. So that way they're not just showing up and just like some prelims like, ah, man, didn't make it to finals. Is this some kind of, you know, commitment? Because I think that's part of the issue when it comes to getting professional swimmers to swim on a consistent basis in times that are convenient, you know, convenient for viewers, and ticket sales are almost never when's convenient for the swimmers. And they're always going to put their long-term success at a Worlds or an Olympics or just straight up going as fast as possible at some point over what's going to sell more tickets. So if you can kind of marry the two with some kind of financial incentive, I think you can bridge that gap. I don't know exactly what that'll look like, but hey, there's changing leadership over at USA Swimming. One of them might be able to figure that out.
No, absolutely. And I think that's, you know, obviously part of the culture in swimming is like you focus on the Olympics. That is the big thing. But it's like, why? And I think that's a two-pronged answer. Like, why is the Olympics the biggest deal? Obviously, it's the biggest deal worldwide, but like swimmer, it's if the Olympics winning a world title, so you know, he became the biggest swimmer. 14. She's now 14, and so that gives her so many more financial opportunities that if you start that if you focus on anything else, it just doesn't make sense from a money perspective. But if you start funneling money into other things, domestic competitions, then it makes sense for not only the huge stars like a Ledecky to start focusing more on these meets, but you can then have the next tier down of swimmers and the next tier down of swimmers start focusing and trying to push more for that. It's like Tom Shields and Chad Leclos made their careers off of going to World Cups, right? Like they would make their year's salary going to World Cups, not going to whatever big meet, long course meet was at the end of the season. And like, because there was a lot of money there. And so, yeah, I think the US could do something similar. Obviously, we've been talking about this for years, but it would be cool to see. And I think just seeing the Shanghai World Cup stop have that much buzz and excitement around it, it's like, okay, well, this obviously works in some capacity. So maybe it can work here too. But as you said, we got a change in leadership coming. We'll see how that all shakes out. We also have a short course meters meet coming in the United States. And it's not how we just talked about, but it is going to happen. And it is the Virginia, Florida NCAA dual meet on October 18th. I think Florida head coach Anthony Nesty, Virginia head coach Todd DeSorbo, agreed on this. I think both have swimmers who are planning to go to short course world champs in December in Budapest. So they wanted to give, their college swimmers a little chance to get some race reps in. And I think Coach Todd DeSorbo also just likes doing fun, weird things. But we already saw the Virginia Cavaliers get into some racing action. I don't know if Florida. I think Florida was supposed to have a dual meet, but maybe it got canceled because of a hurricane. But who are you most excited to see out of these two teams compete at this meet in short course meters?
I'm very particularly excited just for Gretchen Walsh because what I was just talking about with World Cup, she's another swimmer that knows how to go fast.
Mm-hmm.
Randomly in this season. The amount of times where it's just like at a dual meet, it's like, are these results accurate? Is there a touchpad error? That seems too fast.
I wanna jump in for just a second. Here was a headline that we wrote: Walsh pops quick fly split as Virginia hosts Navy. And then you click on the article and you read Gretchen Walsh split 21.6 on a 50 fly, which was the second fastest split of all time, next to herself when she split 21.5 last season. And our headline was Walsh pops quick fly split. Like this is what she has come to, right? She has Ledeckied herself. Like she swims these ridiculous times. And we're just like, yeah, that's good. Sorry, please continue.
No, I mean, that perfectly illustrates my point. Is the fact that she is able to just turn it on and go fast. And I remember like before one of her first like super like impactful NCAA championship meets where it's just like fast swim after fast swim, just getting faster throughout the season. I was like, okay, either she's going to go the exact same time. She's one of those swimmers that's like always tapered. She can go even crazier, and she went even crazier. And especially coming off of, we've seen her in short course yards. We've seen her now in long course meters. We just got to get some crazy times in short course meters. And, especially as now the reigning world record holder in the 100 fly, then, maybe see how close she can get to completing the set.
Right. I mean, that would be so fun to see. I hope we get to see that. But yeah, it's like, and maybe that's part of the why we're so unexcited now from yards times, because it was like at one point she was swimming really fast yards times but hadn't really done it long course, and now she's like, she has swum fast yards times, she did it long course, and now she's back to yards. So we're just like, oh yeah, this old thing. I don't know, I don't get it, because I opened that article expecting just like a fast time, but not the second fastest time of all time. Like that's a really big deal. She outsplit Maxine Parker on freestyle, who went 21-7, who almost made the Olympic team. Right? It's just like, what? It's nutty. But yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting to see Gretchen swim some short course meters. I think athletes like Josh Liendo and Bella Sims from Florida are also can swim really fast in season, and it will be exciting for them to put up some really fun times. I think seeing events like the 100 IM, or maybe we'll even get treated to 50s of stroke, which would be really exciting. We love short course meters for that reason. And I think if they include those events, I know DeSorbo would be on board. I don't know if Nesty would sign off, because I think Florida likes swimming a lot of mid-distance events instead of 50s, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I mean, 50s a stroke, 50 fly with Walsh, that could be an interesting happenstance. Instead of from a flying start, we actually get a flat start, 50 fly. That could be some fireworks.
So we just saw Kaylee McEwen swim the second fastest 50 back short course meters of all time in Australia. The Maggie McNeil, who just retired, has the world record in that event because her undies are disgusting. Yeah. But I also think that we're still going to see this cross-continental battle, right? Because we have Reagan and Kaylee in Shanghai, but then we'll have Gretchen on the same day doing backstroke, hopefully, or butterfly short course meters in Charlottesville, Virginia. So that's going to be such a good weekend of swimming. In 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, we're going to see, or 1.5 weeks maybe at this point, we're going to see some real fireworks, and I think that'll be quite exciting for everyone. So, sticking with college swimming, let's just talk about the Texas men. Let's address the elephant in the room. I don't think SwimSwam talks about the Texas men enough. And of course, I'm being ironic, but they got a lot of buzz. Bob Bowman is now the head coach of Texas. As of this morning, they've pulled 3 of the top 10 men's recruits for the class of 2026. So the future is already looking bright. Bowman is already recruiting his patoot off. But we also just saw a glimpse of their current team for this season, which we've been speculating a lot about. They absolutely have one of the best transfer classes in the nation. Them in Indiana, I think you can make the argument either way. They both had sensational athletes coming in. They had a pentathlon, which they do every year. Everyone swims a 50 of stroke. This is in yards, 50 of stroke, and then 100 IM. And we saw some really great things for that. What was your biggest takeaway from this pentathlon, where we saw Hubie Koch really showed out? Shane Casas had a great meet. Nate German-Perez, even maybe, he was a standout for me too. But what did you like that you saw from this Texas men's pentathlon?
Before we start hyping up the Texas men, there's one thing I didn't like from the pentathlon.
Ooh.
There's one thing that I've liked in previous years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a nitpick, but I liked the way before. I liked their cool point system rather than using an aggregate time.
Okay.
I liked how they had system? It was I believe it was based on like Eddie Reese, whenever he started doing it, wrote down like a goal time for like a like basically think of it like an A standard for every one of the events. And then it was, I don't know exactly how the math was, but it was worth 1,000 points. Okay. And then for every 100th under that time, you got into, it'd be in 1,001 points, 1,002, and it's kind of cool because the times has shifted so much where people are like blowing those times out of the water. And like I think Shane Casas a couple years ago like set the all-time Texas record for the most cumulative points. And I like that because I think it's a cool way to kind of compare like 100 IM to other things. That was actually when that came out. I posted a video of SwimSwam kind of like, okay, how can we expand on that topic and make a decathlon with a bunch of different events. But just because I think that's a cool way to score across that. And it's just unique. And I think sometimes the aggregate time can be a little like ever so slightly weighted towards breaststroke, just because math.
Totally.
But that's a nitpick.
Yeah.
That really does not matter. I just thought that was a cool thing that they did that you don't normally see.
Absolutely.
But in terms of the actual performances, obviously Hubert Koch was, I mean, his aggregate time demolished the field with a 2:12.9 compared to 2:15. And German President was also very impressive. I think he had the fastest breaststroke, right? He was at 24:1, 50 breast.
Yeah.
It's quick.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and that was but and I think the highlight for a coach was that 47.3 100 IM, which is moving and showing that he's still doing pretty good after the after a very successful NCAA season and then transferring that into the Olympics and following the coach that brought him that success. Is he do we know if he is intending to compete for Texas this season? Or
yes,
he will. I couldn't remember if that was confirmed or not, because I knew he entered the transfer portal like right away during the move, but I couldn't remember if that was like I just need to do this to still contact my coach, or if it was an actual if the move. I couldn't remember if that was confirmed or not yet. So that's cool.
I think at the beginning it was like, I just need to be able to talk to my coach. But he and everyone was so different in such a different situation after Bob went from ASU to Texas but yes, Hubie is swimming for Texas this year.
Yeah. And on the Texas men in general, like you touched on this with the recruiting and transfers, is I think that it's kind of a perfect storm brewing in Texas right now, because you have this just the Texas legacy.
Right.
Texas swimming
on
is Texas swimming. People know, and that is for a lot of young swimmers, that on its own can just be a goal. Like, wow, they're really good. I want to be really good. And it's been good for that long that, you can have middle schoolers going like, one day I'm going to swim for Texas, and that just kind of like legacy already gives you a little bit of an edge, I feel like, in recruiting. And then you marry that legacy with crazy momentum from your new head coach, who is, one of the most exciting swimmers on the planet right now, and Leon Marchand. Wow, I watched him just turn this dude into a world record machine, and just dominated the Paris Olympics. And he's also, had all this other success. He just lifted ASU to a team title in a very short amount of time. There's an amount of people who have just had wild improvements under him. Coach is a fantastic example of that. And who did Coach credit it to when he won his first world title? He literally said, it's the Bob Bowman effect. That's really good marketing for Bob Bowman as a coach. And if that's still in any young swimmers' heads when they're looking to make their commitment. And so I think just combining that legacy with the program and the momentum from the coach, as well as like you kind of had this X factor of it just being new, right? New head coach changing things up. And that also puts it in headlines as, SwimSwam reporting all the fleet of swimmers that are following him to Texas, and just, what is this going to mean? The shake, it just kind of keeps it in the news cycle, and you just add that all together. And that is a really good, perfect storm for recruiting some young talent.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like present and future, it's looking good for Texas. And I want to add a couple other contextual things to why this is like why Texas is having such a crazy moment right now. The first of which being like when Bob Bowman got to ASU, like think about the things people were saying. Like he had a lot of hype around him and people were excited, but people were also unsure because he hadn't coached a college team in a long time. The last time when he was at Michigan, people sort of had this thought that, he's more focusing on the pros than he is the college team, even though they had success. But he also was coming off of the back of a legendary coach in John Urbanchek at that time, right? Who had built all of these, who had done crazy things at Michigan, and so it was kind of like, oh, what's Bowman gonna do now? But I feel like he sort of lucked out. He did crazy things at ASU, and he did unprecedented things at ASU. When the COVID pandemic hit, he redshirted the whole team for a year, and people are like, how is that going to work out? And it took them a couple years to bounce back from that, but then they just kept going up and up and up. So, but when he came into Texas, he was following Eddie Reese, but for the last season and a half, we knew Eddie Reese was stepping down. So it wasn't like Eddie Reese was at the top of his game. It was like Eddie Reese, honestly, was sort of at the bottom of his game. And there was all this uncertainty about what's going to happen next. It's not, oh, who's going to follow in Eddie's footsteps? It's just like, well, we know he's going to retire. Who's going to replace him? And I think they got the best possible choice in terms of marketability and visibility for Texas to replace him. So now it's not like he's coming off of the it's not like a Nick Saban won a national title and then retired deal, and now whatever the new guy is coming in to replace him. It's like Eddie Reese was at the end of his career. This is more of a natural transition, and now everyone's excited for Bob Bowman because there's stability. And there's we know he's going to be the head coach, but also it's a great public university. You get a good education. Austin's a great city. I can vouch for that. I've lived there for several years. So it's like you have this perfect storm of things. That's like, why wouldn't you want to go to Texas? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's impossible to get that timing down on purpose in a lot of ways. And so it's so crazy how many of those factors, because I even think about the fact that, recruiting must have been really difficult in the last couple of years for Texas, because it's like, well, who am I recruiting to swim for? Like, I don't know.
Exactly.
And, there's no shot there's any helpful or convincing answer from, if a recruit asks that, you're like, someone good, probably.
Right. It's like, well, you'll get to swim at Texas no matter what, which is, again, for some kids, that's enough. But for others, it's like, I want to know who I'm swimming for, not just where I'm swimming at. So we'll talk about Texas swimming a little bit later. But right now we have one more quick topic before we get to our last segment, which of course is sink or swim. And that is WADA. The World Anti-Doping Agency reveal that they lost access to over 2,000 cases due to computer glitch error before the Olympics. This information was originally presented by WADA lawyers at a meeting in late May, in which WADA officials were warned that the organization had also lost access to over 900 test results from athletes facing active doping allegations. As a result, the lawyers pointed out that the organization had lost the ability to accurately track the cases of athletes who would be competing in Paris. And this is obviously coming off of at the tail end, of a continuing saga where 23 Chinese swimmers had tested positive for a banned substance, TMZ, at a national training camp just a few months shy of the Tokyo 2021 Olympic Games, but it was not revealed to the general public until April of this year, 2024. And that kind of led to USADA and WADA having this clash of who's right, who's wrong, who's standing on the high ground. And I think that the knives have come out in a sense where both organizations are accusing the other of hiding results, of being incompetent. And so this is kind of just the latest in a thread of maybe showing that WADA might not have full competence or a full grasp of their handlings. What was your initial reaction to seeing this particular headline again, especially after everything we've seen about WADA in the news lately?
I mean, my initial reaction was like, "Oh, come on." That was my
No
like.
way.
I may have even said that one out loud when I first scrolled past the headline. But it's kind of one of those things where it's bad for pretty much everyone. It's bad for WADA.
It's a
Even
lose-lose.
if you think it was nefarious, it's bad that it's public at the very least. It's
Yeah.
bad for athletes because they're already in this. There's already been so many questions during pretty much every press conference during the Olympics was, what is your faith in the anti-doping agency right now? Not great. And so I'm sure that's going to help. Is if your test cases can just suddenly vanish. And it's also, in the same vein, it's bad for fans because I hate trying to enjoy swimming results and just scrolling past arguments about doping. Because I like it when it's just like, yeah, if they haven't been caught by WADA, so they're good. And it's only realistically good for someone who is actively trying to dope. They're like, yes. And I feel like there's kind of two paths you can go with looking at what, because of course everyone has their own opinions and is theorizing about like what could have happened. Because, when you say a computer glitch, that sounds like me trying to come up with an excuse for forgetting my homework. Right? My computer, I lost power last night. I don't know.
Computer glitch. Sorry, teacher.
Yeah. Is either, because of course, right before Paris Olympics, everyone's initial reaction is, oh, that's just a lie. This was intentional, right? Whether it was intentional by someone in WADA or it was some kind of, hack from an intentional action from an outside bad actor. That's obviously very bad on either front. Or if it's unintentional, also not great because that means that either there is a major lacking in security if it was say if it was some kind of outside hack or something like that, right? Because I feel like that's not normal. I feel like often when you see any kind of hacks of like anti-doping, it's normally to release information. I think we've seen that in the past before where it's, a bunch of records come out from whether it's, from like individual anti-doping agencies, normally
And
trying to obscure other athletes that aren't speculation. We're like, well, look at these guys.
And also I assume if they got hacked, like they're not as, I think they would be more forthcoming with that, right? It's like, oh, we got hacked. Like that kind of shows that like, at least their security is not up to par versus like, oh, we just lost it.
Yeah. And it's also, or more likely it's probably just, if it was a complete, just unintentional, oops, was just, you got to improve your IT department maybe, because there shouldn't be, backups are pretty easy to do. A lot of things just on their own. If I could really easily recover silly documents that I have in my cloud-based storage or locally, I think my understanding is that it's because of how they need to encrypt like the specific, the same, because it's like medical information, so you can't just have like, oh yeah, it's all right there. So I think they need to have like the samples, they need to be able to pair it with like the athletes. So I think it's something with that system. But you gotta be careful with this stuff to make sure things like this don't happen. And it seems like clearly there was other elements of care that could have been taken, or maybe spend a little more time on it before you go, yeah, we don't need this anymore.
I feel like the comparison in swimming terms is like getting hacked is like having a bad race, or maybe even getting DQ'd for something that it's like, oh, I didn't do this correctly, I can do it better next time. Versus a computer glitch is like showing up to a race without your suit or goggles and being like, I'm ready to swim. It's just like, no, you're not. Like you're not even prepared to do what you're supposed to do. But yeah, it's not great, right? It doesn't, and as you said, it doesn't instill faith in an organization that I think everyone really wants to believe in at this point, but no one is able to believe in because of just the things that have come out the sequence that they've come out, and obviously the answers that we don't have yet. I think USADA's made a big push to say, hey, can you just release the records of those 23 swimmers that tested positive, and kind of the sequence of events that led to that, and WADA has not. And again, I think that's a big problem, especially I think for culturally for Western athletes, and obviously USADA being at the forefront of that. But also, as you said, I think with politics, and I think this kind of falls into like WADA and USADA, it's like, I don't want to hear about it. The only time I want to see it in the headlines is if someone tests positive. Like, other than that, you should be a silent operation where we don't have to report on you a lot. And the fact that we've done so much reporting on both USADA and WADA in the last 4 months, it's like, I just want to read about fast swimming.
Good news organization.
Exactly. I just want to read about fast swimming. That's all I want to see. So, an unfortunate headline to wake up to, but what are you going to do? Obviously, SwimSwam will be following up on this, and you'll see any other related report. Hopefully, it's no report, but you'll probably see at least a few before this saga is over.
I wish there was a reasonable path to get greater transparency out of WADA like that, because it's one of those things where I get in a lot of ways, like I get both the more optimistic and the more cynical answers for why there's not. Obviously, the cynical answers, well, they don't want to, because then if they're doing a bad job, it's really easy to catch. And maybe the more the more positive spin on it is the fact that there very much is a degree where you can't be transparent about stuff like this, right? Because say they're openly transparent and immediately announce a false positive. That sucks for the athlete, because no matter how thoroughly you can prove that it was contamination or just a bad test or something like that, there's going to be a group of people that never trust anything they do. And also just the fact that there's a lot of medical related things that are just kept private because it's private information. And a lot of it isn't really anyone's business other than the athlete and their doctors. So, and I think it's one of those things where, since it could in theory be, the WADA wouldn't necessarily want to make everything transparent, and they need to take a bunch of care to make sure it's done as well as possible and without compromising any kind of, medical stuff. It's like, what's the incentive for them to go through all that work and potential backlash for maybe people just being like, oh, sweet. Because I feel like WADA right now, a lot of the times, and just a lot of anti-doping in general, just feels like this black box that every so often spouts a press release, and apparently now sometimes loses its contents.
So true. And I mean, I know anti-doping is a big thing and an important thing in sport, but I also feel like we set out these rules. People are there are a group of people, as you said, who will never trust the system no matter what, because like we set out these rules, we set out these guidelines. You look at athletes like Shayna Jack or Madison Cox, who went through the process, who proved that they had a contamination. They still served a doping ban. But even when they come back to competition, you have this subset of people who are in our comments section who I don't particularly care for, who are like, oh, they're a doper, they should be banned for life. Well, it's like, then why even make the rules, right? Like they did what they were supposed to do. They went through the process. They were out of competition for a while. Like, they're fine now. Like, get over it, They're like, again, in those people's minds, there's no room for mistakes or no room for, I don't know. You like, even if you try to cheat at some point, like there should be I think there should personally, I'm getting a little off topic here, but it's like, let it go. If they serve, if they do their punishment, let it go. But anyway, yeah, it's it's not great. It's not a great situation overall. And obviously it'll never be perfect. But hopefully it'll get better.
We could go just 1 month without having to say the words WADA or USADA. It's just keep it out of the news.
To win.
I don't want to hear about the amount of tests they're doing in Paris. I don't want to hear about cases from a year ago. I don't want to hear about test results vanishing. I want to hear about swimming results and nothing else.
And that was another thing, is that there were certain athletes coming off of the Olympics, certainly coming off of the news of Chinese swimmers testing positive because of a tainted, contaminated food, that were like, I don't really want to go to China right now and compete in this World Cup, because if everything they say is true, there are contaminated restaurants there. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very legitimate reason for any athlete to be like, no, I'm going to stay away from China for a while. Because you might eat something there and then test positive. So it makes me very happy to see all of these athletes going to Shanghai and competing. That's what you want. That's what you want to see in sport. You want to see there be a global presence, and everyone everywhere to feel comfortable going to compete anywhere in the world. So I'm hoping, again, yeah, I'm with you. I'm hoping there's nothing in the news about doping, WADA, USADA. There's just fast times, and that's it. Okay. On that note, let's get down to it. Let's participate in a little bit of sink or swim. First up today on Sink or Swim, did a podcast with Josh Liendo recently. He said there is a chance that he might be doing a 200-yard fly in this season, maybe at a mid-season meet, maybe at a dual meet. It sounds very enticing. I would love to see it. Sink or swim, if Josh Liendo swims a 200 short course yards fly this season, he would be under 141.8.
So I was looking, I could not see it. Has he swam a 200 fly officially before? Because I did not see a best time
I don't
log
think
for him.
so. Yeah, I don't think
And
so.
in doing that, this is just a fun little aside that I noticed. Is that as of Paris, his long course 100 fly time is 1/100 faster than his short course meters 100 fly time. Short course meters is 50.00, and he went 49.99 in Paris. I just thought that was funny.
Love that.
And so I was kind of looking for any kind of data point to try and rationalize. And I got thinking, in a lot of ways, he is obviously a very similar swimmer to Caleb Dressel. A lot of obvious comparisons, same events. They're getting really close in speed because Liendo's going faster and fast, especially in short course yards. And with that 49 as well, even, in long course, they've obviously both swimming for Florida as well. So Dressel in 2021, this was what made me look, because I remembered him doing something crazy. He swam a 200 fly yards, because I think it was a prelims yards and then a long course finals deal. He swam in prelims this meet, 200-yard fly, 140.68.
He did? How do I not remember this?
I remembered it being a crazy time.
This was in 2021.
Yes, it was in March. So it was like right before everything stopped.
In 2020 or 2021?
Oh, sorry, 2020. 2021. Okay. I don't know why I got that confused.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that second pandemic, you missed it. Okay. So, but still, and we, knew what kind of form he was in there. Mm-hmm. So I think, if he's within, this isn't necessarily how the math works out all the time. He's well within half a second. If we give him well within a second on a 200, I'm going to swim that one.
Yeah. Well, when you put it like that, I mean, I was going to swim it anyway, just for the hype, but
that's my gut reaction as well.
Dressel, I was trying to set this line somewhere where it's like, ooh, do you think, makes you think about it. But now that I know Caleb Dressel went 140.6, I should have put the line at 140.8, right? Not 141.8, because sheesh, yeah. I mean, that's all that's all the data you need. Swim all day. Let's go, Josh. Let's go, especially Florida coaches.
Season,
right? Yeah. If he's in a suit, game over. Absolutely. Because we know Florida likes to swim unsuited races throughout the season, but come on, Florida coaches, give us a mid-season suited Liendo 2 fly.
Or
We're
just suit
begging
for a
you.
dual meet. Even that. I'll take that one.
I'll take that one all day, because then it's not on day 3 or 4 of a meet. It's day 1. He's maybe has 1 or 2 other swims under his belt, but I'd still, because 2 flies on the at the beginning of the dual meet schedule. So maybe he swam a 50 relay. It's a good warm up. Anyway, yeah, swimming that, fingers crossed. Okay, getting back to the Texas men, which is the only reason we're really here. Just kidding. We've now seen what the Texas men have in terms of 50s of stroke in the 100 IM. Sink or swim? I'm gonna ask this question at least 5 times until NCAAs. Will the Texas men win NCAAs?
It's funny. So a couple months ago, the line wasn't for them winning. It was either top 2 or top 3 for Texas men. And I swam that one. You sunk it. We have a lot more information now. I thought that was funny. I think this is lining up to be a very interestingly competitive NCAAs. And I think it's so interesting as well how much that you can kind of trace back to the Bob Bowman at Texas move, because that kind of, you have this championship winning team that kind of, loses many key pieces to it, still retains a lot of talent though. So they're going to, like we've seen Ilya Karun's been doing, that's kind of been, as we're recapping multiple weeks of things for this topic, that's something that, was also very impressive. Some of his swims that have been posted from some suited swims in practice and stuff is, they still have a very good core there. And then you have a lot of people that have followed Bob Bowman over to Texas. So that's now elevated them up from already a very favorable position. And then you also have some people who still transferred out, but now they're flying to NC State and Indiana, and Florida's still there, and Cal's always going to be there.
Yeah.
With that said, with as competitive of a field as that, I feel like it's kind of the field or Texas, and I think I need to go with the field. I'm going to sink a win, but I do think that they're going to have a very strong placing, and I think it's going to be I'm hoping that we can see multiple lead changes in the team scoring throughout, because there's one thing with NCAAs that can be cool to watch a team dominate. Hello,
as
Virginia.
ASU did. Yeah.
Virginia women. It can be cool to watch that. Just be like, wow, this is crazy. But it's a lot more exciting to watch. Like I remember in particular 2018 NCAAs. Like obviously watching Caleb Dressel do his thing. Yeah. But then, because on the women, I was still Stanford, just like winning almost every. I think it was like halfway through me. It's like finally they lost an event. Yeah. As there's every time diving points got added, then Texas would be back on top, and then like Florida was leading after one day, Indiana was making it close. Yeah. Kyle and Texas would break away at the very end, but they're still like flip-flopping. Like any time where the meet isn't mathematically decided, like 2 events before the relay, I'm a happy camper watching that. Because I hate seeing that article pop up on SwimSwam where it's like, even if they've DQ every event, they will still win.
Seriously. And last year we had glimpses of that at Men's NCs, not for the winner, but for like 2, 3, and 4 kind of thing. There were still battles going on, but 2018, you had Texas, Cal, Indiana in that order, all within 20 points at the end of the meet. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm sinking at the moment. Texas men winning. Not that I think there will be growing pains per se, but I think there's a lot of newness at Texas this year. And I think for everything to gel how you want it to, especially at an NCAA championships, it takes experience. It would be insane if Bob Bowman went in and in year one won NCAA. I mean, that would just be like, what? But again, Indiana has new swimmers, but a level of consistency with the head coach and with how they do things, and obviously with all of the returning swimmers. And then I think everyone knew coming in who is going to make an impact has NCAA experience, right? Cal, I think on paper their roster doesn't look as strong as some of the others, but you can never count them out. Like Dave Durden knows how to do NCAAs. David Marsh knows how to do NCAAs. Cal fans know how to do NCAAs. So it's like you can, again, they're always going to be in the hunt. I think it's going to be those three teams. I think Florida had a slight shot, but I think losing McGuire McDuff, we don't know why. He's just no longer racing. His words. That's a big hit for them, and I don't know if they can bounce back from that. So I'm now swimming Texas in the top three. But for now, I'm sinking the Texas men winning. Sticking with our power rankings came out, so I'm sticking with the Texas theme, but really this is just kind of a question of behind Virginia. I think the women's NCAAs is going to be a lot closer than we've seen in previous years. So sink or swim, Texas women maintain their number 2 spot. We now have the Florida women and the Stanford women in particular looking real good coming into this season.
After being so positive on some Texas things, I feel bad going 2 sinks in a row on them there. But I'm gonna sink it just because it's the same kind of thought process for me, right? Whereas if it's Texas versus the field, and if you have, Texas, Stanford, and Florida all look like they're going to be circling that number 2 spot behind Virginia. I mean, I don't have the confidence to give an overwhelming yes, they are going to, to call the shot that they're going to be able to take out both those teams to maintain their number 2 position. Yeah. So I'm going to sink it for that. But it's same deal with the Texas men. That's not saying there's no shot. I think there's absolutely shot because I think it's going to be a dogfight. I just think that there's too much would need to for sure absolutely go right to be like, oh, that's totally going to happen. It's just not enough information. I feel like too many other variables to call it in their favor at this time.
So I'm going to use your same rationale to swim it, which is Texas is losing a ton of key pieces. That hurts. Stanford and Florida are both kind of on the rise. But Texas is also bringing in some really nice pieces, specifically Abby Aarons, who's a 5th year from NC State, who was a key piece for the Wolfpack. You've got Piper Ainge, who will help their breaststroke squad immensely after losing both Lydia Jacoby and Anna Elland. And then Jillian Cox, who is going to be a nice distance piece, especially with the loss of Erica Sullivan. And so I think they're going to be able to retool enough. And they've gotten second, I believe, 3 years in a row. And they've been top 3 the last 4 years. So they kind of know how to get that done. I think Carol and Mitch will be able to finagle and mostly just keep the poise at the NCAA meet because they've had the experience doing this for almost the last half decade. So, but I'm with you. We don't have a lot of information about any of these teams at this point about what they look like racing in season, how kind of, just where everyone's going to fall in terms of their pieces and especially their relays. But again, same rationale. I'm going to swim it. I'm going to say they stay on top until proven elsewise.
I'm glad we got a Texas swim in there. Also, I do think that Emma Sticklin returning as a 5th year is a huge piece for that. That was something I was like a very firm thing because I couldn't remember. I'm like, I can't remember if she's coming back. Because I know obviously Jacoby, Kelly Pash, and Eldon are all like very impactful pieces. I couldn't remember if she was doing a 5th year or not. So I was like scrolling through the article where like rating. I was like, returning 5th years. Ooh, that makes it closer. That, like, immediately, I'm like, with how close this like could be between those three going for the number 2 spot, that immediately makes the fight a lot closer.
That's absolutely maybe the biggest factor in why I'm able to swim it. And also, Emma Stickland had a huge season, a huge NCAA meet last year, like 2023, when she won the 200 fly the first time. In 2024, she still won the 200 fly, but I don't think she performed how she would have wanted to in her other couple events, 2IM and 100 fly. And so not as only is she going to be huge for Texas relays, but I think she might return with a bit of a chip on her shoulder and be like, this is my last NCAAs. I really want to go out and make it something special. And I think we might see a pretty special performance from her come March. And so again, that gives me confidence for the Longhorns. Okay, last up on sink or swim. We're coming full circle on this podcast. In Shanghai World Cup, sink or swim, we will see a world record.
I just got to swim it. I mean, I've said like 30,000 times I love fast swimming, so I feel like it'd be really silly to be like, no world records. I mean, I think realistically, the obvious answer is Kayla McEwen just set a world record. She's swimming at the meet with more competition, with hopefully Regan Smith right next to her.
Yeah.
This seems like a very good recipe for success. And then you have, maybe some other contenders too. Leon Marchand. Could he just blast a world record for fun with his underwaters? Just, kind of, oh, wow. Yeah. I didn't know I could go that fast in a, whatever event you want to insert. Or even
Pan Chan La.
Pan, if even though that world record from Chalmers is, I think, like you said, is maybe deceptively tough. Yeah. That's going to be a loud venue. That is going to be crazy crowd, which could work for him, could work him, because I do actually think that that was maybe a factor that had Leon Marchand a little bit off his 400 IM best time, because I think that's his first swim in front of like a crazy venue like that. But who's to say? All swimmers are going to react to different things differently, and I think a 100 free is maybe the best event to have it just sound like a bomb is going off the entire time, because people are just so excited to see. And especially, gosh, imagine like walking out on into the final, just like that explosion of noise you're going to get, as much of like a superstar as he is now.
I think it's going to be so good. I've been accused, specifically on this show, of being toxically optimistic. And for everyone who's ever said that, you suck. Look, I'm not so optimistic. But I'm going to be optimistic here. And I think that's because world records are really hard. And I think Kaylee McEwen set her world record in Australia. I think that matters. I always say this, like Australia to China, I think it's like an 11-hour flight or something. Like swimming in your home makes a difference. And I'm not saying Kaylee McEwen can't break world records outside of her home, but I think it's harder to do, certainly. But we've got so many options. Kaylee McEwen, Regan Smith, Kate Douglas. We have never seen her swim short course meters, right? And like all these swimmers have so many events they're so good at. Like, Leon Marchand, Pan Chan La, 200 free. Like what if he swims that and tries? Like he's been 143 long course from a swing, like, and again, we always say like 100 free long course translates well to 200 free short course. Yeah. Usually we're talking about yard swimming for college swimmers, but like, he could swim that. So you've got so many multi-event threats that I am optimistic we will see one at least world record from that whole bunch. So I'm swimming it.
Definitely more likely than most other meets. at the very least. Like if you're kind of comparing it to, other in-season meets, right? It's in the upper echelon of likely world records because like just laying out all those. Kate Douglas wasn't even on my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, there's another one that could just maybe happen because I feel like there's so much success around all these swimmers, and there's also this like hint of mystery of what can they do in short course meters, which opens the door up for some optimism in there because if you don't know, you're gonna be like, well, they've been fast here, so they're gonna be fast in this other pool.
Right. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So we will see in just 2 short weeks. We've got a lot of fast short course meter swimming coming up. That's our show for today. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the SwimSwam Breakdown.